Yeah, that's great.
So
Yeah, over to you, Shakira.
basically, these are the areas that we will be covering. Okay. You can hear me, right? Am I clear? Hope I'm clear. I'm audible.
We can hear you.
Yeah, okay, thank you. So the overview and like what we have done to go towards semantic operability, interoperability, and the options that we have explored and the setup that we are using right now. And we kind of decided to use the online OCL as our terminology service for this journey. So we'll also briefly discuss about the issues encountered, the lessons learned, and the effort required to go through this journey, and also where we are right now in this journey. And there are a few things that we would like to put forward also, so that y'all can, the OCL community can help us in this journey. Yeah. So as Dr. Chaminda mentioned, like we are having this government sector and the private sector that will be looking after the healthcare in Sri Lanka. And the government sector is providing free health services, and it's covering around 90% of the inpatient care and 50% of the outpatient care. And also this is catering to about 22 million population. So actually these health information systems, the origin was somewhere around 2004, that is after the Indian Ocean tsunami, where a lot of couple of NGOs came forward to support us, like including the ICRC. So that was the time like there was a lot of funding that was coming towards digitalization of the health information systems. So with that, gradually the number of health information systems were growing, and currently there are about 100 hospitals that are capturing OPD and the clinic data. And there are 5 main EMRs at the government sector would be the HIMS, the cloud HIMS, OpenMRS, and the Swasta. So these are the common challenges like most of the countries are facing right now, the fragmented health data across multiple systems, because these health information started getting into the health institutions individually. So the health information are in silos, and also there is no longitudinal health record. Like if the health information system is there within that particular institution, the records are there. But in Sri Lanka, you get a lot of mobile population that is traveling for occupation, education, and so on. And also it is allowed to seek treatment from any hospital, any place, like somebody in the Western province can go to the Eastern province to get the treatment and so on. There is no limitation. The seeking healthcare at any institution is possible. So that itself is also a challenge when it comes to maintaining the longitudinal health record. And adding to that, the poor quality of the data that is being captured right now, and also this data aggregation and analysis are also an issue, like without the semantic interoperability. Basically, without the interoperability, it's not possible. So how we are trying to achieve the semantic interoperability is we wanted to get the support from the terminology service to help us in this journey. And with this, we are planning to achieve this continuity of care. And also this will help us in doing the data aggregation and analysis. So in the middle of the journey, like we had connectathon programs, like we started in 2023, and also we had a few in 2024 as well. So initially, like we started with the syntactic interoperability, making use of the FHIR as our standard. So initially during the connectathon 1, we got down the EMR, the various EMR systems. There were only a few vendors in Sri Lanka, I said about 5. So we got the EMR vendors, and first initially we kind of educated them on this FHIR, because we decided to use FHIR as the structure for structural interoperability. So we did a capacity building program for them. And then also we developed the Sri Lankan national level FHIR profiles. So using that, we try to exchange the patient's demographic. So that was the main goal objective for the connectathon 1. Then it was followed by 2, where the exchange of patient demographics and along with the clinical summary. So during this connectathon, we had support from the GEMBI team to make the implementation guides for the FHIR profiles. So during that, the main focus was on syntactic interoperability, and it was only at the third connector then, because it took us some time like to move towards semantic interoperability. So during the third one, we kind of focused on semantic interoperability and how we can work on that. So for that, like few options that we were exploring, like whether to standardize the code systems and value sets among the EMRs. But later we thought like to start the process, it was a bit time consuming and we needed a lot of effort. So the next option was to convert the data, like after, when the EMR is sending the patient bundle to the NEHR, before sending it to the NEHR at the time of ingestion, we wanted to convert, like if we have the mappings, we wanted to convert the codes into an international standard code and then send it to NEHR, but making sure the original concepts or original data that was captured was also preserved, so that even if the mapping is not there, then still the original codes would be stored in the NEHR. So that was the other option. And also while doing this process, like we kind of made sure like we were using the codes systems that were suggested in the IPS, like our implementation guides are not based on IPS, but still we made sure to make use of the components in the IPS so that it would be convenient for us in the future as well. So instead of standardizing at the EMR level, we decided to convert it to the international codes before ingestion to the English. So that was the thing that we were trying to do. So with regards to the technical solution, we were using this OpenHIE with the support of the GMB Health Systems. We were using OpenHIE as our interoperability layer, and the mapping mediator, then with OCL mapping mediator, the data that were mapped to the standard codes were converted and stored in the NEHR. So during this mapping effort, like how we started this process is actually by getting down when we want to deal with the semantic interoperability, because we want to get down the codes, the value sets that were used in the EMR system. So let me not call it a code system or value sets. It was basically a set of concepts or values that were used in the EMR systems, like the drop-down version. So those lists, we try to get it down from the different EMRs. And we did not actually see much consistency between them, but still we got them down to begin the process. And later we started doing the mapping with the international codes that were suggested in the IPS. So then we decided to use the OCL as the terminology service. So we didn't want to install it locally because it was practical effort was needed. So we went for this online OCL. So because the online OCL was already managing the codes that were suggested by the IPS, the value sets were already there. So it was more convenient for us to use. And also it had this collaboration with the global partners as well. So why we went for this OCL is because it's some of our efforts were supported by the OCL. Like we wanted to upload some of our local code systems and also like we were able to maintain them privately without making it public, and so that was helpful to address some copyright issues as well. And also the mapping tool, that was very helpful. So we used the OCL to do our mappings, the local code mappings with the international codes, and the responsive community team or the OCL team. And also this was supporting the OpenHIE mapping mediator integration as well. So just a quick, I illustrate this quickly. Like, so when the data comes from the EMR, so basically with the use of this OpenHIE interoperability layer, the file bundle is passed through this OCL mediator. So then the translation of the codes would take place, and it will preserve the original codes, and also the translated standard codes will be also there. Then this particular bundle will go through this MPI mediator, where the patient resource will be extracted and sent to the GMPI, which is our client registry. Then again, it will be linked to the golden ID and sent back. So this particular bundle will be without the patient resource, which would be saved in the it would go to our client registry, and with the golden ID, which would be added as an interaction ID, it would come to the HappyFire server, which will be functioning as our NEHR. So basically, this is the process that is happening. But after going to the HappyFire, what I want to say is mention here is like we still did not see this process is taking place, but the work is going on. Like we have not retrieved the data, like in the sense whatever the data that is stored in the HappyFire, still we have not created a portal to view the data that is stored in the HappyFire. And also the aggregation and analytics part yet to be attended. So right now this one-way process is taking place and we are able to send the information in this way to this HappyFire, which would be acting as the NEHR. So while doing this, the other set of challenges came in. So basically there were no standardized code set that is capturing the OPD data. Like there is a drop-down list, like each EMR would have their own drop-down list. So for this diagnosis and this reason for encounters and so on. So actually, it is not a code system and there is no code or anything. So it is just a value list of concepts, and also within that EMR there will be some unique ID to identify that particular concept. And other thing is like the possible IP rights infringement that at the initial phase, when I said like we were supported by several NGOs following the Indian Ocean tsunami. So during that period, like we were getting some free licenses to use some of the code systems, which are not valid right now. So we cannot proceed with that. So that was an issue. So we anyway wanted to develop a local code system when it comes to this outpatient department, reason for encounter, and so on. So, and also when the particular, like we were using some particular code system, so that had initially that we were allowed to use without license because of that initial period, the tsunami time and all. But later on, like when that particular code system is not catering to our needs, like the EMR started adding up new codes to that. So a lot of EMRs, they were doing it on their own, they were adding their new codes. So when we got down all these values from the different EMRs, there were a lot of duplicates and there were a lot of concepts with similar meaning and so on. It was a very long list of codes and there were a lot of duplicates, and some were there in a different kind of wordings in the code systems, and same thing was added as a local code, and that kind of an issue was also there. And also the next problem was kind of the reason for, when it comes to reason for encounter, diagnosis, and process, all these things are kind of put into one kind of a list. So at the OPD setting, like it's like sometimes when they're in one particular drop-down list, you can either select the reason for encounter, like patient has cough or something like that, or the diagnosis or the process or something like. So that kind of an issue was also there because all these were captured kind of together in one particular drop-down list. So that was an issue. And also the EMRs were allowing to capture free text for certain things, like certain things where the free text should not be allowed kind of. So for example, for the reason for encounter at OPD, there's a drop-down list, but still, like instead of going through the drop-down list, the clinicians sometimes type the reason for encounter, and sometimes they do not type it as the complete words. They give abbreviations with single letter and so on. So I just show you the analysis that we did based on the reason for encounter, so that you get a better idea. And also the last one is the lack. These are not the only challenges, but these were the kind of the main challenges. Lack of centralized governance mechanism. So when we develop the values, there should be a mechanism for the EMR teams to accept them and get it into their systems. So basically those were the challenges, and just giving some examples for the challenges. This was for reason for encounter, of course, there was a drop-down list and the clinicians did not select, and they were adding free text for the reason for encounter. So that did not take us anywhere when it comes to analysis. And for things like allergic history, there were no value sets at all. So it was just free text, patient allergic to food, allergic to penicillin, and so on. So that was also not helpful, like when it comes to decision support systems and all. When you're just typing in text, that won't take us anywhere. And the next count and things like that, they are in the EMRs in different names sometimes. Full blood count is there as FBC and so on. And even if they are in the same name, like let's say EMR A is having full blood count, but it has a unique ID within that particular EMR, which is not similar to the ID given for that particular concept in a different EMR. So when we are trying to do the mapping, these full blood counts will have different IDs. EMR 1 will have full blood count with one ID. The EMR 2 will have a full blood count with different ID. So there was like duplicate code systems. We can't duplicate concepts with same concepts with duplicate IDs and so on. So when it comes to mapping, so it was difficult. It was a concern. And also the other issue was like certain things were captured at different granular levels, like when it comes to smoking and so on, the common example that is being used. So sometimes we capture it as yes, no, and sometimes with the number of cigarettes and so on. So we had to come to some kind of a consensus, like how we are going to capture these information before sending it to the OCL and doing the mapping things. And also some amount of ambiguity when we are trying to capture the codes, because initially we were doing the mapping with the SNOMED GPS codes because we don't have the SNOMED CT license, and SNOMED GPS was also suggested in the IPS, and also this OCL had SNOMED GPS. So we were trying to map it with the SNOMED GPS codes, and some of the codes, values, concepts that we had, we were finding it very difficult to find it in the SNOMED GPS. And some lessons that we learned is like collaboration with the EMR developers. That's very important while doing this process. And also when doing the mapping, we need a lot of expertise. Like when we are doing the local code mapping with the line code mapping, like we need some inputs from the MLTs as well. And this was a kind of a big process. Mapping was very much time consuming, and we needed a sizable human resource to attend to it. And with regard to that OpenHIE, the interoperability layer, we needed support from the GEMBI team to manage that. And also we considered these mediators to be a temporary solution. And one day we'll have to move to a place like where the standards are maintained within the EMRs maybe. So just to highlight like how much of an effort that we have put in for this particular process, like this interoperability thing. So in the OCL, we created a MOHLK, that is the org unit name in the OCL for Ministry of Health Sri Lanka. And we have about 17 members and created 4 sources and 17 collections are there, and uploaded 3,169 concepts and managed to do 1,247 mapping. Actually, this mapping process kind of stopped because our objective kind of diverted. I'll come to that soon. So, and there's a technical working group with about 11 members. Some are still there, some have gone for foreign training, and likewise, but there are 11 members overall. And during the Connectathon 3, which was the last Connectathon, which was done technically involving the EMR teams. So there were 5 members from the Ministry of Health team, and EMR team, there were 9 members from 4 different EMRs participated. And also GEMBI team, there were 3 members physically present, and we had a lot of support at the background, like with the profiling and so on, and even in the mapping also, we had a lot of support from the GEMBI team as well. And so we are right now in the journey. While doing this process, like if we take the medication, I just want to discuss a few cases like what we came across. So when we take the medication, we have something called the SR codes. So that is the local code that is being used published by the Medical Supplies Division. That is basically related to the stock management thing. So these SR codes are there, even though it was initially not being used within the EMRs, the published code is there. So that made it a bit easier. So what we had to do is get the EMR people to stick to this SR code. So that every medication will have there'll be a SR code. That code will be consistent among the EMRs. So that we made sure. After that, we uploaded with this OCL's bulk import process. We took these SR codes into this OCL platform, and then we started mapping with the SNOMED GPS code. So that is there in the OCL. So medication, that is the pathway that we took for the mapping. But the issue is we have only mapped with the SNOMED GPS code, but if you want to move, get on with any decision support system or to identify any drug interactions, then we would be needing some mapping with this RxNomo, ATC, some other code system if we want to move ahead with this drug interaction and stuff. So we'll have to give it a thought. So the other scenario would be like when it comes to this line code investigations. As I mentioned earlier, like when it says full blood count and FBC, they actually had a different ID within the EMR systems. So what we did was we took all these investigations, this full blood, all the common list of investigations that were used by this EMR and uploaded. So when uploading, we gave it a concept ID. For example, IX001, IX002, and so on, because the EMRs did not have a consistent ID among themselves. So we gave it a concept ID and we uploaded. So later it became an issue because EMR did not have this concept ID that we created and uploaded. So they will have to put it in their EMR tables. They have to map these concept IDs with the concepts, this full blood count and things like that within their EMR system. So then actually the EMRs, they decided instead of once again doing this mapping with these IDs that we have locally created, they thought that they would directly map it with the line codes. So it would take the same effort. So then they said they will adapt to this line codes within their EMRs instead of we don't have to do it twice. No, like they don't have to get this concept ID and put it in their table and then we convert it. So some of the EMRs have started doing it and some have already done it. So that is the second kind of scenario where the EMRs decided to do the mapping within their EMR system. And the next complicated scenario was something like this. So there is a value set within the EMRs to enter this reason for encounter and things. So actually it was not only reason for encounter, everything in one basket. So in the drop down, you get this some concept codes for reason for encounter, diagnosis and process. So when we did the analysis, it came like this because they were URTI, cough, and C took the third place and it was 84,000. This was for a particular specific period, just to see how things were taking place. So this did not, even though we are doing all this mapping and putting all the effort, this did not add any value because C and A and W and things like that. So it was difficult. So we wanted to fix this issue. So this was because after going towards semantic interoperability, and if the data is not of good quality, then we are nowhere there near aggregation or analysis or even retrieving the data or understanding the meaning. So we kind of put a temporary stop to the mapping process, and it was decided to create a value set first, like rather than allowing them to like if you want, you use it, if you don't want, you enter something like that. Instead of that, we want to give them a value set, all the EMRs, one value set, and get them select one value from that. So then the mapping process took a different direction. We stopped it there, got the value sets, what value sets in the sense, the list of values actually. We got the list of values and then we wanted to create a local value set. So when we got the list of values, that had a mixture of codes. Some were there from the ICPC, like from the previous list, and some locally added codes, and it was kind of a mixture of all sorts. So when we created the value set, we made sure we are not losing any concepts there. We made sure to add all the concepts and also to capture the granularity as well. So we actually, like when making the new value set, we just prepared a brief guideline, like how we are going to do this. So whatever, this is how that process was. Like we got down this Sri Lankan values um, into the Excel sheet. Then we, instead of creating our own value set that is not mapped anywhere, we thought we would go for the values that are already there in different code systems. So our preference was first to go for a SNOMED GPS code. So in the local code, if we had something like iPain in our local value set, so we mapped it to a concept in the SNOMED GPS. So when it's same as kind of concepts, we mapped it to the SNOMED GPS. And then if it is not found in the SNOMED GPS, then we had a kind of hierarchy. We got to know about this CL and we got a kind of a good idea, some kind of an idea, like CL could be used and CL has mapped their codes with other standard code system also. So we thought we would take CL as the second preference. So after SNOMED GPS, if that particular code is not found, then we went for the CL codes. And next it was this ICD 11. And likewise, that was the order. And if it is not found in these international code systems, then we created our own code. So finally, we almost there, kind of 90% done. So a value set, which is having values from different code systems, and they are standard code systems. And if they are not there, then we take it from the local codes. So this particular process we had to do in the Excel sheet. And I think if from what we learned recently during that showcase, like some of these mapping things could be done in the OCL itself. It was happy news for us. So like when we did this, like somebody has to, like we got together and do it because we needed consensus, because sometimes the same name is not there. So we wanted to find out the meaning and things like that. So exact code and whether it's the correct mapping. So we did it as a group activity, and it was a time-consuming thing. So we wanted to review them. So just got to know that the review and approval process of the mapping are also kind of coming into OCL now. So that would be very helpful. And yeah, so I think from there, Dr. Chaminda will take you through. Dr. Chaminda, over to you. So.
Okay, thanks, Shakira.
Dr. Chaminda,
I think can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. So I think there are a few issues, going through. I think Dr. Shakira, highlighted some of the, problems that actually came across. It was a huge effort by the whole team over, many days. I think something that we can really use is some guidance, and also capacity building pertaining to the terminologies, because you have to look into the meanings of most of the terms in different code systems. Shakira, shall we go to the next one? There's a box coming up on the screen. Okay, thank you. So why we were not actually using the OCL to do this work? I would say, it was easier to do on Excel, because I mean, if we had to do it on OCL, the full I would say the value set. There are generally two steps to importing, right? You have to import the code system and then assemble the value set in it. So now what we have done is we have got all the codes that are being used in the EMRs, and then immediately try to map it to a set of standard codes. What could have helped us is to start with, to highlight what are the duplicates already within the value set. So I saw there, a feature being added to see what are the mappings available from other code systems. But it will also be helpful if some support can be given to highlight the duplicates within the same value set or the code system. And also, you need to map, see search for map equivalent codes in other code systems, and I think it's already implemented in OCL to an extent. But what could have helped us also is this, having a preference hierarchy. So in our exercise, what we try to do is we wanted to show the data that is retrieved in an IPS-based, template. And because IPS uses Nomad GPS, it uh, made sense to us to map whatever the codes to Nomad GPS preferably. And then CL, for it being we might be able to get the CL also to incorporate some of our requirements, so that flexibility was there. And Sri Lanka is already using ICD-10 for inward care patients, data capture. So EIMMR, morbidity mortality reporting is done through ICD-10, but we are trying to move on to ICD-11. And if all of that failed, we wanted to create local codes as well. So one example would be like not otherwise specified. Most of the code, because say in ICD-10, there might be 5 codes and then say not otherwise specified code. But in our import, there are 2 codes and we say not otherwise specified. So that not otherwise specified in the ICD 10 does not, or 11 does not make the same meaning as, in our setting. So we had to create our own codes for that. That was the consensus from the group. We might be wrong, but that's how we, sort of decided on that. And it was very difficult, I think, trying to find the meanings of each of these codes. So, there are medical terms, but then there are, in the values that we were using, there are some lay terms as well. And it's very difficult to see what is the exact mapping code, because in Snowmed, I think we use the Snowmed CT browser actually to find the hierarchy where it sits, so that we know, okay, this stems from this concept, so it has to be equivalent to what we are doing. And because some of the codes that were there in the ICD, so ICPC, in our EMRs were ICPC2, and ICPC2, whatever the freely available literature, you find a set of codes, but not the meanings. So in most instances, we had to go to ICPC3 browser and see what the equivalent code in that, and then see, what the meaning, what was intended by that particular code, and then go across the SNOMED or ICD-11 and CL to see whether they actually match the concept. So having some clarity on the meanings, as also hosted in the OCL, in a easily visible manner, would definitely help. And also, when you add local codes, uh, you know, it would have been easier for us if when you add a value, if you can push it to both the code system as the value set. So I know it might not be a generalizable requirement, but then it would make a whole lot easier to put those codes. Otherwise, you have to go to different interface to put the value to the code system, go to the value set, search for that particular code, and then you have to import it into the value set. And also this exercise, the output we want is actually the mapped codes. So that mapped codes will need to be incorporated into a new value set. So we did not see, I think, such a feature as well. So Excel became the tool of choice for this mapping exercise. So I wanted to just touch base on some of the issues we had and some feature enhancements we might have liked. Can we move on to the next slide, Shakira? Okay. So I think as Shakir also highlighted, um, the EMR developers, they identified the requirement. So I put it on the chat. How they created those value sets was basically a database table with a primary key, most probably auto-generated, and some text. But to ensure interoperability, you need to capture the code system, the code, and then the whatever the fully specified name, etc. So I think now they understood that rather than this on ingestion mapping exercise, it takes the same effort for them to upgrade their IEMRs with this way, so that it's compliant. They can send the value sets directly, and then also on the NEHR side. Um, through this exercise, we started collecting basically junk from EMRs, but knowing that percentage of junk was also very good. Like, then you can turn it into an indicator and then follow it up so that you basically over time improve the quality of data that you get. So I think having that visibility to the data that is being created in the EMRs was a real eye opener. And also we need to set up that governance mechanism, how we in the future maintain the code systems and value sets, especially local ones, if we need to create. And something that is very lacking in Sri Lanka is the documentation. So I think some of the documents that we created, like how the mapping exercise was done, the priorities, the like the SOP for that. I would say that was one of the good things that we that has come out of this exercise. So we saw some of the documents shared by the Gembi Health Systems, like the playbook for interoperability or data exchange, and we try to replicate some of those documentation, and we did it collaboratively through Google Docs. So I think it's a good thing that we are moving towards that, rather than some person leading or oriented, because we are going national, and other than for the Ministry of Health, these EMRs, we have quite a good control over them, so it might not be that high of a requirement. But then you go to the private sector, so many players coming in, where it needs to have very good documentation for them to actually adhere to whatever the standard we put up. Uh, Next slide, please. So a lot of effort has gone into getting this done. And we have the interoperability team from the Ministry of Health side. Most of them are health informaticians. And we had to rely on other staff like the medical laboratory technologies and clinicians as well. And the EMR teams actually, it's not most of them are not commercial vendors. They are either teams that are within the Ministry of Health or within the IT Ministry of Sri Lanka. So most of the EMRs we actually own. The ministry owns the code, or the government owns the code. But when that is not the case, even they were very helpful. They want to learn the the interoperability concepts, learn about fire. So we had to be very thankful. They have been very active, very much interested, and did most of this work free of charge actually. So we have to acknowledge them. And Jambi Health System also, they came to Sri Lanka twice to run these connections, set up the test platform that we have, currently in our data center. So, and also they supported the mapping exercise initially. I mean, so that's a whole, big thank goes to them. And I think I should mention the OCL team. Certain issues that came up, like mapping, the fully specified name was partly truncated, so you can't actually, go on mapping. Um, you have to go to another window and open up the code and see what the name is and etc. So those things we managed to raise tickets, and they were very helpful in resolving it in no time. So thank you very much. And also I have to tell, we have a OCL instance in the Ministry of Health, that es.health.gov.lk, but then immediately found out it's not worth the hassle to import all these code systems uh, and upgrade them when they come out, new versions, as well as upgrade the platform ourselves. So we are more or less looking at a model where we are going to maintain the our code systems and value sets in the OCL online, but maybe have local cache which we can use in case it's not available, because we also do have a lot of connectivity issues. We can't rely on real-time data syncing, and I'm sure even the OCL platform does not allow it, because 1,100 institutions constantly querying the OCL online might not be it might not be working in that scale. So these are the teams that supported us. There are many others as well. So I'm sorry if I didn't mention any of any of them. Uh, so this is what we wanted to share with the community, and if you have any questions or suggestions to improve the approach that we have taken, I'm more than happy to answer and listen to your comments. Thank you very much.
Dr. Shakira, Dr. Chaminda, thank you so much. This was incredibly informative. We have time for just maybe a few questions, so I'd like to open the floor up to anybody who'd like to. You can just go ahead and turn off mute and go ahead and ask your questions directly. Well, while people are kind of thinking about what questions they'd like to ask, I had one. Earlier in the slides, you talked about some of the initial challenges, and One of them talked about the lack of centralized governance mechanisms for terminology management, which is, a widely experienced challenge in basically all settings. I'm curious if you have some insights now that you've been doing this work for some time about, what did you put in place for governance? What has worked? Are there some things that maybe you're still working on and improving?
John, I think it's still work in progress. It's not just the terminologies that needs to be managed. A whole lot of components of a digital health platform is actually being built through a grant that we have received. So all major registries like client registry, provider registry, facility registry, terminology services, then shared health record, portal for patients to access their health record, an embeddable interface for clinicians to access the NEHR. All of that is coming. And we need to onboard a lot of EMRs into the platform. So that also needs a lot of governance, tools to check whether they are compliant with the DHP that we are setting up. All of that is required. So it's all in the making. But I think that management of terminologies might be a little bit easier when so we have a structure in the Ministry of Health. The head of the ministry is the Secretary Health, and under the Secretary Health we have something called eHealth Steering Committee. He heads it. Most of the directors and the DDGs, etc. of the ministry are under it. Private health sector is represented by Private Health Regulatory Council, and you have WHO and other World Bank, ADB, who are doing health related projects are also there as observers. Under that, we have created multiple working groups. So there is one for the interoperability as well. So I think it's up to us to set up a governance mechanism and then get the Secretary Health to sign it as a ministry guidelines for everybody to adhere to. And I think yeah, if OCL, I was not actually fully involved in the last call that you had, the new features that you have deployed. Sorry, I have to look at that video again. But I think down the line, we need that requirement. So the requirements should come from the actual users in their clinical settings. And there has to be a mechanism where centrally we see whether there are equivalent codes for that, whether it's a valid requirement as well for the because you can't expand your value sets for OPD, reason for encounter, diagnosis, or process into many thousands. It's a very busy. If Sri Lankan setup, a single doctor might look after about 50, 60 patients within 1 hour. OPDs are very, very crowded places. So people will not go through thousands of codes to find something. And also, even when we put up these our standard terminologies, one thing that we noticed is, especially in the not otherwise specified category, you should show the clinician what are the other options and make sure that you select not otherwise specified when the actual specified ones are not selected. So it will not come up. So if you are just implementing autocomplete, that those codes will not basically show up to say, okay, these are three, you are selecting not otherwise specified. Are you sure, okay, whether there's a better selection? So certain other EMR side interface changes might also need to be implemented. So all of that we need to, document and through our governance mechanisms, ensure the EMRs are basically, compliant with it. Currently, I think you would not have learned anything unless you have done this exercise. So that's what I mean. What we had to say, like, okay, we might not have done the best work, but we have done some work and we have learned a ton of things by doing it. So get your hands dirty, try out things, and then it'll improve and evolve. Thank you.
John, just a quick comment. I'd certainly second the point about documentation Louis brought up earlier, especially with mapping. We found the creation of, for lack of a better term, I'll call it mapping style guide, a document that describes the tools that are used, the processes, the steps that are used to mapping, because whenever these mapping things go on, you end up with kind of somehow ad hoc or idiosyncratic decisions that you make along the line. And those need to be documented for consistency. So sometimes there isn't a right or a wrong, but you just want to do it consistently over time. So this kind of style guide, if you will, that is a living document that describes how a given implementation proceeds with a mapping process can be very valuable.
Yeah, thank you. I think I can agree on that. Yes, that makes sense. But I think generally on the clinical use, I don't think any of the EMRs be using the mapped codes per se. So what will happen is these codes in the value sets will be will be in their drop downs or whatever the selection mechanism they are using. And as long as so all the OPDs in Sri Lanka using that value set and coming, their data coming in to the the NEHR, the mapping requirement in that sense is not so high. But that was a very high priority in the beginning because we want to do the conversion on ingestion, so that needed mapping. And now what we are trying to do is we are trying to create this value set without losing any of the information value that was there in the original the value set. So then the mapping is important, but
No, no.
on the long run, I'm not sure whether how important that would be, in the long run. I hope you understand.
So, well, we are at time, and this has been a really good discussion. I hate to end it here, but I think, want to congratulate you, Shakira, Chaminda, on just an excellent discussion, presentation, and just a tremendous amount of progress that you've made in your work. And pushing through with mapping, even though some of the tools that are available aren't quite ready to tackle the complexity of the work that you're doing yet. I learned a tremendous amount. I would love to follow up and get deeper on some of the challenges that you experienced in that work. The OCL community showcased some new mapping tools and workflows that are under development now that perhaps could support that. If imagine you still have plenty of mapping work to do in the future. And there's also some other tooling available as well that's open source that might be applicable. But again, really appreciate that and everybody's time, and enjoy the weekends. And if possible, we'd love to post this slide deck and the video so I can follow up with you on that as well. If make sure that you're open to that. So thank you
Sure.
again. Thanks,
So,
everybody.
okay, thank you for the opportunity. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you. Bye.